I'm joined right now here on TVP World with the Secretary of Foreign Affairs of the Philippines, Secretary Enrique Manalo. Sir, thank you very much for having us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Well, Poland has been on this big, long tour through Southeast Asia and, of course, ending up here in the Philippines. That has come to a conclusion. And I'd like to just ask you, in your opinion, how do you think the Philippines-Poland relation has developed over the past few years? And what are some specific areas of cooperation that you see moving forward?
Well, first, we're very happy that the Foreign Minister Sikorski was able to visit us this time. I think it's an indication of the growing relationship and partnership between the Philippines and Poland. He was the first foreign minister to visit the Philippines in over 30 years. So I think that already reflects the nature of our growing relationship. Yesterday we had an excellent discussion on our partnership, our relationship, and we identified quite a number of areas where we think are of great potential. And of course, we have ongoing relationships. For example, in trade, we have about almost $400 million of trade, but we both felt that that's an area which we can both increase. And in that regard, we identified a lot of areas where this would be possible. We discussed cooperation, for example, in agriculture, also how to increase investments both ways, both in Poland and also here in the Philippines. And we also discussed the importance of having more visits between our business companies, business missions to each country in order to spur investment and trade. And then we also identified other areas of cooperation, defense and security, also in renewable energy, as well as in IT, and even in cybersecurity. And even more important also from our perspective too, possible labor cooperation, because we have about 2,000 plus Filipinos living in Poland, and I think the number might even increase in the future. And also people to people, we're Catholic countries. We have a very common, we have a common heritage. And I think that is a good basis and a foundation to enhance our partnership. So in that respect, we also looked at greater educational cooperation, especially higher education amongst our universities, more cooperation, and also in tourism. There was a bit of an increase in the number of tourists from Poland coming to the Philippines. So we want to continue that, and also I'm quite sure Filipinos are traveling more now, and I think there's also greater interest in visiting Poland. So you can see there was quite an extensive area of cooperation, as I said, where there is great potential for our two countries. And I think we did, in a matter of an hour at least, I think we did a good job, at least in identifying it. Now the real issue is how we can follow up and really see how we can add substance and more teeth to what we discussed.
Surely, I've been following Minister Sikorski on this trip to Southeast Asia. And one thing I've noticed, of course, is he trying to express the concerns that not just Poland, but the entire European continent has concerning the war in Ukraine, Russian aggression. And I would just like to briefly hear, what is the Philippines government stance on Russian aggression on the European continent? Your position?
Well, we have ever since the conflict began, we have supported. The Philippines has consistently supported all the General Assembly resolutions which have been passed on the issue. In fact, I think there have been about 6 or 7, which we have supported all of them. And I think the basic reason for that is we are fully committed to the principles of the United Nations, especially the respect for sovereignty and the settlement of disputes through peaceful means. And this is all grounded in the UN Charter, and and our great respect for international law and a rules-based order. And we think those are the fundamental issues which really cause deep concern to us. This is, of course, aside from the fact that the war has also created, has had economic effects too on the Philippines, initially even on food prices. For example, in terms of fertilizers too, rising prices. But even beyond that, we had the issue of respect for international law. And that's been a very basic belief of the Philippines ever since the United Nations was founded, that countries must respect international law. Otherwise, we will be living in a world where the strong will dominate, and that the other countries will not have a chance to really have a share in the benefits of cooperation. So we need to have a world which is really premised on a rules-based order and international law, and we think those principles are directly related to what is happening in Ukraine.
Philippines also faces its own challenges, and I think you can draw some parallels there with what we're seeing from China in the West Philippine Sea and South China Sea. Do you believe that this is some type of neo-imperialism from China? Perhaps we hear a rules-based order a lot, definitely a deviance from this. But in your opinion, is this, are there many parallels that we can draw between the way Russia is behaving and the way that China is behaving in its neighborhood?
Well, what I can say is certainly we're seeing a much more assertive and aggressive approach by China with regard to issues such as territorial disputes, and also in terms of interpretation of existing international law. In our case, in the West Philippine Sea or South China Sea, this is the UNCLOS, the UN Convention on Law of the Sea. And this is of great concern to us because it seems as if China is not really observing what it has agreed to. It is a signatory to the UN Convention on Law of the Sea as the Philippines. And we're merely asserting our sovereign rights on the basis of the UNCLOS, or international law, and of course we have the arbitral award of 2016. So what we're doing in the South China Sea is fully in compliance with international law. And the actions that China is taking against us or on its own are not consistent with international law. And that is, in a way, the parallel with what's going on, for example, in Ukraine. And that's of great concern because if countries, as I said before, are not guided by rules or by international law, especially law and agreements which they have entered into, then we're into a, if I put it mildly, a highly unpredictable geopolitical environment.
And after Minister Sikorski's visit, do you feel that Poland is firmly on your side concerning this issue?
Well, it was quite clear the Philippines and Poland share a common commitment to international law, in other words, respect for international law, and a common commitment towards enhancing a rules-based order. And I'm not only talking in terms of security, but even when it comes to trade and other aspects of international cooperation. Because unless international cooperation isn't premised on respect for rules, etc., then again, as I said earlier, it's a world where will the powerful dominate, and we cannot have a world where other countries cannot shape or have a role in shaping their own future, and this can only be done through cooperation based on some form of agreed rules for cooperation.
Another area of defense of cooperation, is defense. We have these Black Hawk helicopters that were assembled in Poland that have been bought by the Philippines. Now, concerning other potential military equipment, are there any particular systems that you are eyeing potentially buying from Poland? I know that there's a delegation right now at the Defense Expo in our city of Kielce.
Well, we had a good discussion But I understand the foreign minister probably also met our defense minister, and they probably looked into more details. But we did discuss the helicopters. Of course, we purchased an initial amount of them. And I think there's also potential in further purchases of such assets. But as you mentioned, we also considered very broadly other types of cooperation, even cooperation in terms of battling cybercrime, for example. And I think the potential is there for looking at other kinds of defensive equipment. And the fact that we have a delegation now also attending the fair in Poland. So I think there is definitely an interest. And I think what's really important now is that we can get our officials or even companies to get to meet and see whether there is real possibilities now for actual purchases.
Concerning cybersecurity, obviously this is it's a hot topic that affects governments around the world. Governments are usually kind of slow to react to some of these issues. But in that field, because I'm sure that Philippines faces its own threat, potentially from China, Russia tends to be the biggest threat in our neck of the woods. So are there some areas that you've been able to identify concerning the cybersecurity, ways that Philippines can help Poland and Poland can help Philippines?
Yeah, in fact, yesterday we said we might, aside from, let's say, potential purchases of equipment, I think we also discussed ways where we could exchange views and also maybe benefit from best practices on how to deal with cyber attacks, because the Philippines is not immune. We have not been immune to cyber attacks, and I think it's certainly very worrisome on our part. And I think where I see some potential is really a lot too on having more meetings with officials and getting really best practices on how to deal with it, and not only alone, but let's say in cooperation, for example, with Poland, bilateral cooperation. So I think we had a good discussion on that, and I think we agreed that we will have further talks on how we can advance concrete cooperation in dealing with cybercrime and cyber attacks, all kinds of issues related, and other issues related to that.
Well, Secretary Manalo, thank you very much for having us today.
It was a pleasure.
We very much appreciate it, and obviously we'll be watching as this beautiful relationship blossoms. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to visiting Warsaw in the near future.
And that's all from us here in Manila, Philippines, with the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Enrique Manalo. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.